Hello, welcome to our second episode of Ask a Writer with Drew and Omar. And our guest today is Michelle Hill. And we're going to talk with her because it's February. We're going to talk a little bit about love and some of the maybe potholes that people have run into with love. I'm going to let Michelle introduce herself and her book. And then Omar is also going to speak about a screenplay that he's written called Why Men Cheat. So I think we're going to get both sides of it. I'm going to probably just jump into referee if I have to, but just let the two of you go at it. So tell us a little, Michelle, tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, I am the author of 5 books, and the latest one that I released in November of 2023 is called The Heart Swindler: Reclaim Your Heart and Stop Falling for Liars, Losers, and Lunatics. And it contains stories, including my own, of romance scams, romance scammers, and narcissistic abuse. Real life stories, real life experiences, and I have a thing or two to say about those.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I'm just going to jump in and say that I read your book yesterday. And so it's not a long read. Okay. So it's something that's definitely worthwhile. There's not much fluff in it. It's pretty much to the point and direct. So and I thought some of the stories were I liked some of the stories, and some of the stories were like I didn't like them, but that's from a male point of view. So
So I want to jump in and back up a little bit, with, like Drew said, with it being February is, obviously for many the Valentine's month and the month of love. And I think the beautiful thing of about the topic of love is that it never goes away, right? Whether it is positive love stories or, in Michelle's case, in book, negative love stories. It's always there. It's a part of, life and death. Love is a part of what I call the human condition. It's something that's always going to be around, always talk about, always going to be a hot topic, and people always are going to disagree. So that was kind of the thing that I was doing when a universal line or a universal question, and it seems to be more for men than women, even though some would argue that women cheat equally. But why do men cheat? Why does it seem to be an overabundance of infidelity amongst men? And that's what I won't say that the screenplay slash book that we're doing answer those questions. It's designed to take a deeper look at it, and maybe spark up more conversations about infidelity in general. But I love Michelle's book, man. I love the title. Some of the stories I imagine are amazing. I haven't finished reading it yet. I can't wait for the film to come out. It sounds super exciting. I call Michelle in some of my writings a romance author, but that's not she writes about pretty much everything. I think this last book has more of a romantic tint to it. Is that correct, Michelle?
Yes, and it's when romance goes wrong. And
Right.
people have said that, yeah, one person on the comments when it first came out said, "Oh, that's so sad." And then what you just said, "Oh, is that negative love stories?" But you know what? It's about overcoming. So even though they're love gone wrong stories, they're still from survivors who have survived romance scams and narcissistic abuse. So there is a lot of positivity in there, because you have to survive that or it can swallow you up.
Absolutely. That's a good point. I didn't think of it from that perspective. And also the book is maybe a roadmap for someone that may be in that similar situation, that thinks that, hey, this has only happened to me, but it's helpful from the perspective that, there are other scenarios out there and you're not alone in this situation. Drew, what was your favorite story? I'm curious to know.
Well, I have to be honest, how the book begins and the introduction and the two stories and the loser sections are mine. And if I am allowed to say my own stories are my favorite, I'm going to say that because I live them and my man picker is faulty and I know that. And so I come from a perspective of just telling my own stories, and it was cathartic on one side to have just get it out there. Not that I hadn't told them before, but not in that much detail. And the two stories in the loser section are also just an example of, you know what, I'm still here. I'm still standing. I have forgiven, and I have learned a plethora of lessons from having been through those experiences.
That's that's a wonderful space. I just thought of a book that me and you, Michelle, should probably write together because, and I say that to say, maybe I can be your man picker therapist because I know a lot of women that have faulty man pickers, and it's odd to me, to be honest, because when they go back and they tell me like the stories and stuff, I'm like, duh, like that wasn't like. I guess coming from a guy, it's like, yeah, I could have told you that that was gonna go down here. I call it opening, the man book, and it's almost kind of like taboo for another guy to open the man book, so to speak, and say, hey, that guy really, he's up to something else. That is not how a guy who is really into a woman. That's not how we react. Those aren't things that we do. Because I'm probably, I know I don't want to say probably, I know I am guilty of. Oh, I don't want to tell myself here, but I'm probably guilty, not like scamming or anything like that, but I'm probably guilty of. I will say that I'm guilty of leading along in a way of like I knew that this woman wasn't going to be, my girlfriend or my wife or anything to that level. However, I enjoyed hanging out. I enjoyed her company. I enjoyed, going places and I guess have a good time. When I knew in the back of my mind she was interested in more, right? So it's certainly selfish to continue down those paths when I knew full and well it was never going to go further than, maybe sound bad a little bit, but for lack of a better word, a good time. Um, and so there are clues to that. They're very, very, very clear clues that, I started telling my female friends. They're like, no way. I'm like, I'm telling you, it's a playbook. If a guy likes you, there's certain things that he's going to do. If he doesn't like you, there's certain things that he's going to do. If you are Miss Good Time, there's certain things that he's going to do, and it's
Yeah.
very clear from a guy's perspective anyway. So maybe we should do fix Michelle and Omar fix your man picker.
Yeah. And I
Well,
think it would sell a million because there are so many women
Yeah.
out there who I talked to that said, oh yeah, I do too. But to your point, Omar, I relied on my male friends because when I was the target of it, what's called a future faker at the gym in January of 2023, it was an in-person encounter.
Like
And
last year?
last year, and I had
Holy
already,
smokes.
yes, that was very recent, and it only had a 2 month shelf life. But my male friends, to your point, when I told one of my long time 20 plus years male friends, hey, so and so came over and he brought this sampling of 7 perfumes, and he told me to pick one and that he would buy it for me, and it was $350 an ounce, blah blah. And he goes, take it from me, honey, that is from a former womanizer, which my friend was. he says that's classic player paraphernalia. And
You guys have given all these things titles. It's so funny. Player paraphernalia.
and that was really
Now you need an appendix. You can have a book that's just an appendix of I've never heard the term player paraphernalia. Even though I've never heard the term before, I knew exactly what you were talking about. That's hilarious.
Exactly. So I rely on my male friends, and there were some classic, and in my book, The Heart Swindler, I do have 10 warning flags toward the end that you absolutely positively must pay attention to. And they're out there. If someone comes to you, and you know what, my sequel is going to be male stories, man stories, because not quite as many, but there are plenty of men who fall for women romance scammers. If you are a 65, 70-year-old giant homely man, say, and this 30-year-old bombshell is sending you pictures telling you she's in love with you, think about it.
That's a red.
That's a
super.
duh.
You know, that's a super red flag. This is the thing about all of that stuff. Like I've never been a woman. I've always been, honest. About even my dad's like, listen, you can't keep, going over if you don't like that woman, going over to her house, having her cook you dinner and hanging out with her all the time. That's not gonna work out well for you in the long term. And I was like, nah, Dad, I was honest and upfront about my intentions and so forth and so on. He was like, yeah, but your actions aren't matching your intent. You're telling this woman that you don't want to date her, you don't want to be exclusive, whatever, but everything else that you're doing says the opposite. You know what I mean? And so but there's some people who do that intentionally, right? They are actions are going to be one way, and they're going to tell you whatever you want to hear. And sometimes people just have to be honest with themselves. Like you said, you're 7 years old, and some 25 or 30-year-old person. It's better off just to say, listen, I'm 25 or 30. I know that I'm cute. I need some money. You want some companionship. Just have an arrangement and be done with it. Like, let's not be naive to think that there's, and this is something that I say to women, and this is I think interesting. If a guy, like in that story you just told, Michelle, a guy meets you within the first day or so, and he's bringing 7 perfumes that are $350 an ounce to purchase for you, and he barely knows you. A lot of people take this like, oh no, I'm just so amazing, and his first gaze at me, and he couldn't control himself, so he just want. No, man, no. That's like that's a hook. That's a hook. Yes, you are amazing. Yes, you're probably the most gorgeous thing on the planet, but that just doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
Right? That's a setup. That's a setup. A person that's genuinely interested in you doesn't have to do all of that. However, guys know that there are certain women that are going to take that as genuine. Like, well, if he's willing to spend $1,000 on me on perfume, he must be genuine. No, that's the shortcut. It's much harder to get to know you and to listen to, to truly get to know. That's a lot harder than spending $1,000. So, people have to think about it, in a different way.
No, and that's so true, because a real man, so let me define a future faker, which I didn't even know that was a thing, but it's someone who comes in and builds this whole future with you with no intention of filling in the blanks. So they're a future faker. And I had to research that, and it's a real thing. But a real man will come. He won't make promises. He won't say, yes, someday I'm going to take you here. Someday I'm going to take you here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take you to that restaurant. He's just going to do it. He's not going to promise things that he can't fulfill. He's just going to do them. And that's really important, a differentiation between somebody who's trying to scam you, male or female, they will love bomb you to no end. You're not just
Yeah.
handsome in that
Yeah.
suit. You're not just pretty in that dress. Oh my gosh, you're the most gorgeous woman I've ever seen. And they go on and on and on ad nauseum. You know, for a woman trying to scam a guy, she'll do the same thing, and she'll appeal to his fragile male ego, and she will just build him up in just a nauseating way.
Well, it's
You
interesting,
know,
Michelle.
these phrases that Michelle has, man, are out of control. But I will say, Michelle, in all honesty, you use a lot of terms that are going to be incendiary to men in general, right? There are a lot of I don't want to say attack words, but um, I'm not sure the wording I want to use, but like the male ego in and of itself, I think that's a misnomer to say that the male ego is fragile. Egos are fragile universally, but it depends on the human being that is the owner of those egos. So to say that there are plenty of female egos that are fragile. Dogs, cats, bears, if they have egos, are probably fragile to a certain degree. So I think that those are terms. And then another term that I kind of find problematic, just depends on the definition, is the term a real man, right? So I always tell people, because there's sometimes people say, well, a real man would take me out to dinner. Well, first of all, I'm not going to let you define for me what a real man is. I get to define that. No one else, no other woman, no other guy gets to find that for Omar. And that's what I try to teach people now. That is a place that you come to over years of self-development. But, me taking Susie out for $100 dinner doesn't make me a real man, right? That doesn't, or not taking her out to $100 dinner, or not opening the door. Like, I don't know that these trivial things for Omar defines what a real man is or real is not. Now, I will say that a real man should be honest. A real person should be honest, trustworthy, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those are some of the terms that we just need to be a little bit more, I think, careful in how we use them.
Yeah, I think
Yes, and I do love special pet terms. I do. So when I
Yeah, I do
say
that.
fragile male ego, I say, yes, absolutely. But women scammers know how to target what males crave: admiration. You're so this or that. And women too, the same thing. So yes, I call it the fragile male ego. And I have had conversations with women friends that say, oh yes, we have to, just not comply with, but adapt to or feed the fragile male ego. But you're right, absolutely, and I will agree with you on that. In that, yeah, everybody, women can have absolutely fragile female egos, probably more. It's just different. Male and females are going
Absolutely.
to, the scammers are going to appeal to their targets, and they can sniff out that fragile ego, whether male or female. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's
yeah,
just about, like you said, with the scammers. I always say never show your hand. As soon as someone knows what your hand is, like, so some men, like you said, need admiration. Some men need to be told that they're strong or smart, or whatever the case may be, to feed that ego. As soon as a person, and vice versa with women, men know that, let's say a woman hasn't, maybe she's not quote unquote as attractive, and she hasn't been told that, and then that guy is going to go out of his way to, like you said, love bomber. Like, I never heard that before, but he's going to go out of her way to do that, so that you can create a position of leverage. And it's unfortunate that people do that, across the board.
Yeah, it is. And when I refer to love bombing, I am referring to romance scammers, because that's what they do. That's how they start their process. But it also applies to narcissistic abuse, which I have several stories in my book about that. And it's a cycle of love bombing, devaluing, and discarding. And if you stay with a narcissist, you're guaranteed, 100% guaranteed to repeat that cycle, repeat and rinse, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. You're going to go through love bombing, excessive attention, affection, whatever that means. And then you're going to go through devaluing. And then you're going to go through discard.
I wish I had an office that women could come in and almost like a therapist and sit down and say, okay, so here's the situation with this guy. This is what's going on. This is what he's doing and telling me. And then I can like write them a prescription, like a layout. Okay, cool. This is what's happening. Like, because I guess from a guy's standpoint, again, I've had women tell me stories. I'm like, yo, why in the world did you go for that? It doesn't. I was like, it just doesn't. And then, it's just crazy. We did a series of interviews with women, and we're about to restart them with Why Men Cheat. And I've listened to women tell me stories. I'm like, yo, and I understand that some of it is this, that when you've been told that you're not worthy over and over and over again, right? And so that it's unfortunate that sometimes resides within a person, and then you feel like you're isolated. And you feel like you have no one, to talk to. So I definitely am not, saying anything negative about these women, because sometimes, these people are, they're very masterful, and they target a certain type of person.
Yes.
So this is no, I don't want to, victim blame, so to speak. But I wish there was a way to like, hey, red flag, red flag. You know what I'm saying? Hey, hold up, type deal. Just to keep people from some of these crazy folk.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, they sniff out who you are. I was just minding my own business at the gym, doing my workouts. I wasn't looking for anybody. I'm not paying attention to anybody. I have as much as I can have a mean face. I put on my mean, gym focus face, so nobody talks to me and I don't make eye contact most of the time. So but they're watching you from a distance. They're watching you and picking up certain things. And what I can say to the reason why women fall for these guys, that men just say, wasn't it obvious? Wasn't the game obvious? Women want love. They want to be loved. And that's why, and I watch a lot of YouTube videos on this, especially when I was preparing for the book. And women would give away hundreds of thousands of dollars, sell their houses, spend their whole, deceased husband's life insurance policy, and end up broke because someone promised them love. And that broke my heart, because they weren't realizing their worth. And that's an ongoing problem.
Yeah, Michelle, one of the things that I also see is that a lot of women are carrying scripts in their heads about that unworthiness, okay? And they haven't been heard. And so one of the other things is, if a man comes along and starts listening to them, which hasn't happened before, it makes them vulnerable in that instance. And the situation has to be not just that he'll listen to you, but that he will do, not say. So it's a matter of actions and not words, and being able to distinguish that. And that's hard, especially when something that's a need is being fulfilled.
Yes, that is so true, Drew. That is so true. And there's so many women that have been told, especially in my age group, 40 and above, 40, 50, 60 and above, that we have been sold the script by core family members, by our family of origin, by people close to us that we're supposed to be able to trust to tell us. And they have told us that we're not enough, and that we're lacking in so many ways. And I just did a Toastmaster speech. I hear voices, and I was kind of like, are they going to think I'm schizophrenic? Because I'm not. But I talked about the voices we hear from those who were supposed to love us. And when you're told that you're not enough, when you're told, just find somebody to marry you because you're not really smart enough to make it in this world, you embrace that as your story. And until you discard that script and embrace a new script that's more empowering, and you put the oxygen mask on, you learn to walk in your worth, you're going to keep falling for the same line, basically.
Yeah, and the really difficult thing about that, I was in a meeting this morning, we were talking about this. The really difficult thing is that negative script becomes more comfortable than changing the script. And so when you go to change the script, it's really uncomfortable, and that feels like the wrong thing to do. And so that'll bring a person, man or woman, back into an abusive relationship, because that abusive relationship is normal. And when that person's out of it, they don't really know what to do.
Yes.
So, and it doesn't have to be a normal relationship. It could be something with a narcissistic person.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's baffling to me that someone would say that to another person, like, hey, you're not good enough to just find someone to marry. Like that's for, I mean, I guess
My
it's a
mother told
good
me
thing.
that. Oh, I'm
Oh
talking
my
from experience. My mother told me that. So it is. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm just not making that sentence up. I
wow.
lived that narrative, and that's why I know so much about it. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's all. I just, it's like I said, it's so foreign to me that that would be a a a statement. It's like, hey, I don't know. It's just this foreign, wild person. And I guess if I really dig into it, it's a way to try to ensure that I'm sure your mother loved you. In her mind, is like, well, if I frame it this way, maybe that will ensure that that she'll be married, or maybe her quote unquote standards won't be too high, et cetera, et cetera. But even regardless of the intention, you don't want to plant that seed.
Exactly. And I had a whole childhood and growing up, even into my adult years, of that seed. So it's taken a lot of work for me to pull up that seed, and you can't just bury it, because that's so destructive. And you have to pull it up by the roots, and the key is forgiveness. You have to forgive that person, because maybe they were, and this is what I kind of came to realize too. You have to realize that other person came from a wounded spot themselves. And so whoever has told you that message is probably wounded themselves, and they're telling their story, not your story. And so you have to
Hurt people.
Yeah, hurt people. Yes.
and I think the culture reinforces that for women too, even now, because it's really interesting. I'm watching all these movies that are being put out where they take male heroes and make female heroes out of them. Okay, so now we have all these female superheroes, and I think the intention, it probably is probably good, but the negativity, it creates a negativity, because now how does a woman live up to that? How can a woman like Wonder Woman? It's wonderful to see that there's a woman out there that can take care of it and take care of all these bad men. But if I'm a woman, I wonder if I were a woman, I would wonder if I could do, since I can't do that, that makes me feel even more diminished.
Yes, and that just adds to the message that women already get of, you see the commercials, everybody's a size 0, and they're perfectly made up. And the sitcoms you watch or whatever, they go to sleep and wake up with lipstick and full makeup. And They have this, hourglass figure. So women are already coming from, I'm never that. And then, to your book, Why Men Cheat. It's just women will embrace that. And I know we'll probably get into that, but women will embrace that like, I'm not enough. It's my fault. And they will take it on themselves. I was the reason because I'm not skinny enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not enough.
Well, I see Drew's point. I guess my statement to that would be sometimes we get caught in a concept of dichotomy or a concept of either or. And I don't think it's a concept of either or. I think it's a concept of both. And what I mean by that is I think that, I have a daughter and she likes, Wonder Woman, paraphernalia, and she makes sure that she's really focused on going to support that movie and other, positive female-based movies and whatnot. So I think that it becomes our and society's job to tell both stories. So yes, you have just like there's Superman and Batman and all those guys. You have these uh, unreachable, women hero figures, but you also have the conversations to where be the best you that you can be, and that's enough, right? You don't have to be Wonder Woman, but we can still have these figures in society, but at the same time, teach our daughters and sisters and wives to have a conversation. Say, hey, being the best you, wherever that falls, is plenty. And that goes the same thing for men. Actually, I think it's like, hey, that's all that should be asked of you is to maximize, your personal capacity and do the very best that you can. But at the same time, if Wonder Woman is great, the woman that's a doctor is great. Is the woman who teaches elementary school is great. All these people have a positive place. But it just really comes down to maximizing you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's walking. I mean, I stress this so much. It's walking in your worth, no matter who you are, no matter, our features, our ears. My mother was still teasing me about my ears when I was in my 50s. I keep them covered most of the time. And I'm well into my 60s. So it's taking your features, whatever you've been given, ears, eyes, hair, nose, mouth, body structure, and walking in your worth and truly embracing that's how we're structured. And everybody's structured differently. Everybody has a DNA. All of our handprints are different. And so it's just embracing that. And I say, walk in your worth.
Also, I think to go back to add on to what Drew was saying in another direction, however, is I find that we are now doing some, what I call overcompensation. Like we have where the women swindlers are more. It seems like before it was majority men, and now it's like women say, well, you know what, they can do it, we can do it too, and then you have a backlash of men that are now, I guess, kind of upset that women are, I guess, taking their own power to do whatever it is that they want to do. So I see all of these podcasts and things with like these are very, very angry men, and all they're doing and they're tearing down women because the women are just simply saying no. The women are just simply saying, I'm not going to be swindled, or I'm not going to be this, and I'm going to have standards of what I want. And these guys are just like extremely angry. I'm like, yo, why are you so angry if that particular person or woman doesn't like you or want to date you? Then just move on. It's kind of like some of these guys feel like they have the right for a woman to like them, which again is crazy to me. It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah, I think to your point, I think absolutely right. I think it's just a blow to our psyche, to our egos, when someone says, I don't want you anymore, whether it's one date or you've been dating somebody for a while and you decide that it's not a situation that you want to continue in, and you put a period on it, not a comma. And it, no matter how that happens, male and female, it hurts, it hurts your heart, or it hurts your inner core. And so I don't know how to avoid that. And I think you'd have to be tough as nails to just, and narcissists they are unempathetic, they're unfeeling. So they're the only ones pretty much that can walk away and never think about you again, where the other person is like, do they miss me? Are they thinking about me? Nope. Oh, you're on mute. Oh.
To jump back into the book, what is, without telling the whole story verbatim, more of a synopsis, what's your, I guess I would want to hear your favorite story of yours and then your favorite story that's not yours in the book.
Okay. Well, my favorite story is, I would say, the more recent one, because when I was first divorced after a long-term marriage, I was online dating and I succumbed to, and I didn't know the signs. I had never even heard of romance scams. I had been married a long time, married at 20. So I was so naive, and I'd stayed home with my kids. I mean, I was a homemaker, all that. So doing $2,500 later, that was, and that never happens to you again. That just happens once. But this thing, I think my favorite story of mine would be the one that happened last January, because even though it had a 2-month shelf life, it was so, in retrospect, it was so cookie cutter. And even after all these years, almost 20, well, over 20 years of being divorced, I didn't see, something in me didn't feel right. Like my gut, my intuition, whatever you want to call it, was like, something's off here. But it's my favorite story because it was just so cookie cutter. And looking back, like they say, hindsight's 2020. And so looking back, it was just, okay, extreme love bombing, promises of lavish gifts and trips, and perfume and luggage, and
So
a
let me
whole
ask a
bunch of
question.
different things.
Would you say that it was which is very human, desire for, compassion and relationship, that those desires will allow the cloud or the fog, where you're good. It's like, hey, something is weird, but hey, I want this to be true, right? I want this to be a real thing. Is that what causes the fog, or is that what causes you to kind of keep going, even though something's kind of like, it's not? Is that, would you say that was correct?
Yes, I wanted it to be true, and that I wanted somebody to love me, and I wanted to have a companion in life. Absolutely. I wasn't drawn in by the promises of gifts and trips and the whole thing, because I'm more of the, give me a blender, but it better be a really nice blender. I'm not drawn in by expensive perfume and stuff, diamonds. We're watching a movie one time. It was and it was a quote man movie that I didn't understand the plot from the time the credits started rolling, but one of those espionage things. And he leaned over and said, "Do you like diamonds?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but I hear they're a girl's best friend. I mean, you don't have to give me any of that." But it was classic trying to draw me in. We'd go out to a nice dinner, and I would come back and just something in me. And I remember telling my close inner circle, like a couple of people, male and female, something doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is. It was my intuition telling me something's off, something's off. So yes, to bottom line, to answer your question, yeah, I would love a life companion, but the right one.
So what's your favorite story of someone else is in the book?
I think my other favorite story was, I think, my daughter's. And that's a surprise. That's a spoiler alert.
Mm.
Her story is the very last story in the book. And she tells her story. And I like it because I have seen her move past that. And I have seen her, even though she's still in communication with her narcissistic abuser, it's still, she has freed herself from the grip and she empowered herself. So I like to see that happen.
Are you able to give us some like general things about the story, or you want to save that?
With my daughter's story,
Mhm.
yes, she would make pancakes in the morning for her partner, and he would say, I don't want these. I don't take them away. Where she took the time to make pancakes and serve him breakfast in bed, and he just like, no. That, that kind of thing, emotional, mental abuse of every kind. And she would get to the point of wanting to take her own life because
Oh man.
of what he was telling her. You're nothing, you're this and that, you can't live without me. That's classic narcissistic abuse statements of more of a malignant narcissist. And so I'm really proud of her that she was able to escape that, and yet still she has to maintain somewhat of a relationship because they have a daughter together.
Well, we're talking about all this, and it makes me feel fortunate that I found somebody, and that because I have been scammed, and I probably as O did, there were probably women that I led on that I wasn't really that interested in throughout my life. But when you do find that partner, it's a wonderful thing. And I want to kind of see if we can end on kind of an up note of how wonderful it is when people appreciate you. And in talking about that, I want to tell you how much we appreciate you and what you've helped us do in the conference, as well as just as a personal friend and as somebody that I've done business with for many, many years. And I really appreciate you for who you are. And I'm hoping that your manometer gets improved here so that
Manometer.
My man picker.
yeah,
Man picker, manometer, both of those are good.
I pretty much that's not my focus at all.
No, but I want the manometer to be working in such a way that if that right person comes along, you're not just going to reject him because he's male. So
Absolutely, yes. And there's a
Okay.
certain type of male that I really appreciate and am attracted to. But yeah, that's a good point, Drew. And I thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Well,
And I'm
we
just
think the world of you. We think the world of you.
Thank you.
And there's some
Absolutely.
guy out there that's
Absolutely.
missing you that could have a great companion.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I so appreciate that more than you know. And I think you're so right when you say women are so tainted by negative experiences that when somebody real comes along, when somebody who wants to a real relationship with them, no, you're just like everybody else, and they have to go through the third degree of questions and interrogating, because often, and man, this is a complaint that I've heard from my male friends, they have to pay for the mess that the women have been through. So I
But
appreciate that.
simultaneously,
And
I want to say that simultaneously on the women's side, though, I'm still going to come to, to speak to it from the women's perspective as well. That's not, as a man, and you, if you know that, then, and you really like this woman, it's up to you to be patient, because it's not reasonable for a person who has been through that to just instantly turn it off. That's human nature. I say all the time to, women, and this kind of goes into not necessarily just the Black community, but communities in general. Um, women, especially if a woman has had to manage a single parent home, or they had to always, pay and cover their breaks or take out things that are traditionally male, and then you do find a great companion who is a great partner. um, it's hard to turn those things off when you've done them yourself. There's things that you have done for yourself for 20 some odd years, I'm sure. So for a guy to pop up and be a great guy, his expectation of you turning those off automatically is unreasonable. No one can. I mean, right? It's human nature. So I even, I understand that. I communicate with, my wife about that. I know I understand that, this may sound weird, but I know that I'm great. And I know that you probably haven't had a guy like me before. So for me to expect you to operate like you've had a good guy is unreasonable. It's going to take you some time to say, you know what? Omar is as amazing as he thinks he is. He's going to do what he says he's going to do. And something that simple, I'm finding out from women, something as simple as doing what you say you're going to do is foreign. And again, to me, that's weird. Like that should be the number one thing. Like, hey, if I say I'm going to do this, then that's what I'm going to do. That should be easy in my book. But thankful. I'm like Drew. Thankful I haven't been a part of that market for 24 years, thankfully. But it's just odd, and it's tough. It's tough out here. But like Drew said, we definitely think the world of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the key is the words have to line up with the actions. And if they don't, run.
Get up out of there. We almost need. We're running out of time. I was going to ask you to lean back into my book. I was just curious as to, do you have a personal reason or logic as to why you think men cheat? I always like to ask people that question.
What now? Say that again. What?
I was wondering. So the name of my book is Why Men Cheat. So I always ask women if they have a, a 2 or 3 liner as to why they think that predominantly men cheat.
Oh, great. Let me think for a quick second. Why men cheat?
I stumped you. I feel like I stumped
You
you.
did. So I personally, off the cuff, I think men cheat because they're looking for the next bright, shiny object, and the familiar sometimes gets boring and mundane.
Absolutely.
And here's you have this shiny new jet engine, and she seems exciting. Now she's going to cause you pain and heartache, a bunch of money, but oh, they look so good. So I think
Yeah.
that's why.
And so a little bit about the book, and that's absolutely one of the reasons I think. A little bit about the book and the film is that we put these 4 or 5 guys, and we actually put each of these different scenarios into play, and we play it out for you from a male's perspective. Myself and my co-writer, we play out, the boring guy, or the guy who's just bored with his relationship, or the guy who is trying to compensate for, being with different women makes him feel important, and what that psyche is about. And again, not seeking to answer any questions, because who are we to answer any questions, but to make you think about it. And I always tell people, with that example, with the, hey, this new engine over here is not only is that engine new, but that engine thinks, or that person thinks you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. But when you go home, or when you go to your partner, where your partner doesn't have that level of admiration for you per se, because they know your bad spots. This new person doesn't know that snore all the time, or they don't know that your credit score is 100, right? They only know what you presented them, so you can't expect that new person. You can't expect the person that you've been with for a long time, who knows all your ugly spots and is still with you, to act like the person who only knows your clean spots. Again, that doesn't make sense. And I know that a lot of men fall into that trap because this new person is always praising you. You're the best thing since, cooked food, to this new person, but that's only because, or mostly because, they haven't spent enough time with you yet to know your dark spots. And what you should be doing is appreciating the person who knows your dark spots, but decides to be with you and love you anyway. That's the value. And I don't think we have enough of those conversations even.
Yeah, absolutely. And I applaud you, Drew, and you, for having long-term marriages, because it does take work and it does take commitment and it does take putting yourself on the back burner sometimes. And there's so much involved. And I don't think I'm seeing that longevity nowadays. And so I applaud both of you for having long-term marriages. It takes work, but it's rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, I really like, it's even literally right now, I'd like to put some hot sauce in my woman's water right now. Like right now, she said something earlier that I wasn't happy with. Right now, if I had some hot sauce and she was going to drink a glass of water, I'd probably put some hot sauce in her water. Just enough to, nothing that would hurt her or cause her any major problem, but just to, let you know. And I'm sure she probably wants to do more than that to me on the regular basis, without question. I'm sure, as a matter of fact, I'm sure I frustrate her more than she frustrates me. I'm sure. I'm absolutely positive, because I know I can be a frustrated person. So, but that's the work, right? And it's so easy to walk away. But that's the work, even when the person is like, that's the craziest thing I ever heard. But at the same time, you figure it out and you work through it. But it is work though. It's work and compromise and change. When you're with someone that long, you change as a human being. So it's two people changing and learning, but still, coming back together within that changing and learning space.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you said, it's easier to walk away. It's easy, we think it is, I guess. People think it's easier to walk away. It's not. It's not, because like you said, it's tough out there, and people think, oh, I'm going to go online dating and I'm going to meet this man of my dreams or the woman of my dreams. And online dating, I haven't been on it, don't have plans to be on it ever again, but having been on it in years past, it's a hot mess. And
people are crazy, man. I feel people are crazy. That's all I can say. It's tough if you got someone that's not doing anything. Now, again, don't stay in anything that's abusive or anything to that level. But if you're upset because you didn't put the glass in the sink and put it on the counter, and even I learned that that's a much deeper situation. Like, why are you so upset about a glass on the counter? But this guy wrote this amazing article explaining it, and I was like, oh, that when you put it in that frame, it makes more sense, right? It's not just a glass on the counter. For some people and for some women, taking that extra step is an expression of care and an expression of love. And again, I didn't, I'm not the most emotionally intelligent guy, so I didn't get any of that. But I read that article and I was like, okay, I understand it, and that's what I mean when I say the desire to change, the desire to learn and put in the work. For a lot of people, it's just like, I don't feel like dealing with this. I had a friend that recently got a divorce, and even though he got a divorce, he got remarried, and he's happy, now. But he was like, man, if it ever comes to that, try not to do it. He's like, we couldn't figure it out, and we mutually agreed. But as a friend, if you're ever in that space, do everything in your power not to do it. And even though he's happy in his new marriage, I thought that said a lot for him to say, "Hey, if I could not have done that, I wouldn't have."
Mm-hmm. No, my husband leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me because I wouldn't be me today and the growth that I've had without that happening. And yes, I cried the whole first year and it was devastating. And that's all I knew was be married from 20. But I can honestly say now, I'm so thankful because it's the best thing growth-wise for me that's ever happened. But in marriages, I completely agree. Maker, do the things that will strengthen your marriage. Do the things that will foster love. How can I serve you today? Go to your wife or your husband and say, how can I love you today? What are some ways I can love you? And it might just be put that glass in the dishwasher. It might be just hold me, hug me for a minute. It might just be simple things, but just do the work and it yields the good things, but you can't make somebody stay if they're intent on leaving.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I think we're coming up to the hour. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to wrap up, but you can go ahead and wrap up.
No, go ahead and wrap up. That's fine. I'm going to put all of us together here and remove the pins so that
I didn't have anything else to say. I just wanted to thank Michelle for coming on. Make sure you guys go get her book. If you go to any of the Carolina Book and Writers Conference pages, my personal page, Drew's personal page, we'll put a link up for the website, and we'll get a link to her and her book and her information on all of those spaces. Like Drew said, it's a short read, a fun read. And again, want to thank everybody for checking us out.
Great. Well, next month we'll meet again on the first Saturday of the month. We'll let you know about the topic as soon as we know what it is. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you for co-hosting here. I think this was a great session. Any final words, Michelle, that you want to impart to us?
Well, besides going to buy the book, share it with those, even if you're married, it really doesn't apply except for maybe a narcissist, if you're married to a narcissist, but everybody knows single women. Most everybody knows. So put it in the hands of somebody who might be vulnerable. And that would be the first thing. And the second thing is just like, I'm so thankful you had me on. I'm thankful I got to talk about it, have a dynamic conversation around this part. And Valentine's Day, if you're married, go love on your spouse. If you're single, don't wallow, And I heard one woman say, what are you going to do for Valentine's Day? I'm going to slash my wrist with chocolate. I'm not going to do that. But, don't wallow. Don't just love on yourself and buy yourself chocolate. Go to Trader Joe's or somewhere and buy yourself flowers. I do that. I buy myself flowers at Trader Joe's and just nurture yourself, learn to just love on yourself and do those things instead of just sitting back and, oh, poor me. That's a choice. Don't make that choice.
Thank you. Well, I guess that's it for a month. We'll see you in March, and thank you, everybody. Take care. That should do it.